Hi, I'm Eleanor, and welcome to this week's episode of the Intuition Lab. This week, I'm going to be talking about staying the intuitive course, or what to do when you're on the right track, but it's not smooth sailing and you begin to doubt yourself and wonder and second guess, and maybe even consider giving up. So, why, if you're on the right track, isn't everything working out perfectly? Well, the first answer is there are no guarantees. Just because something is simple doesn't mean it's easy. Just because you're doing the right thing doesn't mean it will all magically come together. It will align, but it may not be a smooth process. And, that's just part of our existence on this planet. But I'm going to run through a few scenarios where you're staying the course and you're frustrated, and I'll offer some advice on how to overcome it. So, let's say you want to do something and it's taking too long for your liking. And I will speak to this because it is part of my fitness journey. I would like things to move faster. I would, you know, look at the scale every week, look at the way my clothes fit, and I am seeing progress, but it is not as fast as I would like. So I'm asking myself these key questions. Is this still what I really want? Yes. Is this path my path? I'm not trying to follow the guidance I've seen someone have online, their path to fitness. And sometimes you see someone else's example of how they achieved something, and it's exactly the way that works for you. But for me, I'm cobbling a few different things together. But yes, this is my path. Is it right for me? Yes. Divine timing, is now the time for this thing to happen? And I would say, yes, it is. For me, I feel like it's a bit overdue. And what, if anything, can I do to speed things along? So for me, it would be doubling down on what I'm eating, looking at snacking. Am I making the best choices given the amount of food I have decided to eat every day? Stuff like that. Can I get more activity in? Can I add another, you know, weightlifting session to my week? Just things like that. Can I sort of meditate more besides my daily meditation, get into the headspace where doing the things I want to do, making the changes in terms of fitness and movement, seem to align more closely with my day to day life, and maybe the guidance you get will be that this isn't still what you really want, right? And then you need to reconsider and go back through the, intuitive decision making process or ideation. You know, if the path is yours, it's right for you. Is the timing right? Sometimes there's an ideal timing for things to happen. Maybe this isn't your time to do a certain thing, and ask, your guides or your higher self, like, is this the right time for me? Wait for the answers. If yes, proceed. If no, then I wouldn't say keep it on the back burner, but maybe it goes down the priority list. What, if anything, can you do to speed things along? Sometimes the answer is nothing. You just have to keep on doing what you're doing and ask your higher self for forbearance, for just the courage and the strength to keep doing the thing, even though it's taking longer than you might want. So that's it's taking too long. Two, you face opposition. Let's say you decide that you would like to sell your house and downsize into something smaller. If you have family members living with you, they may not want to live in a smaller house. Um, Moving can be a huge hassle. You may have to deal with wanting to make changes in your business or at work and just having people who don't want any part of it. There, it is also important to go back and ask yourself if it's what you want. Determine your commitment. is it your path to do this? Or is it just, another idea that has just filtered into your consciousness? If it's right for you, and, again, there's an issue of divine timing, maybe you're not speeding things along, but, are there messages you need to hear in the opposition? If yes, then ask to hear them in the most grace filled, objective, clear way possible. If not, then better boundaries are needed. Excuse me. You need to have the courage to follow your own conviction, and that's also something you can ask for. And sometimes when you are making the right choices for you, it will be unpopular. And for many of us who are used to, nonstop people pleasing, it is a bit of a sea change to just say, this is what I want. I am not doing this to hurt you, and make sure that, you're coming at the desire to do this from the right place, that you're not doing it out of spite or malevolence. You're doing it out of, what's in your best interest. Quite often, when we're faced with opposition, it's because we need to, build our boundaries, learn to get comfortable with people not liking what we want. We need to get comfortable with saying no, which is also really, really difficult. Another example of staying the intuitive course is when your life changes. So you could have another child, your marriage could fall apart, you could need to relocate in order to take care of a sick parent or other family member. Um, Depending on what it is you're being guided to do, um, it may become impossible. And you can also ask, like, if this is still what you really want, if this is still necessary, whatever you're trying to do, you can ask for, and if you're determined to roll with the life change, you can ask, how does this affect what I'm trying to do? And sometimes you might be surprised to hear the answer is it doesn't. But the challenge to you is to find a way to have what you want, either outright or the essence of what you want, given a changing life situation. So, using my fitness example, maybe if I had to relocate, obviously I work out at home, but maybe I could find a gym or vice versa. Or I currently live in a place where I can go outside for walks. If I couldn't, I would use my walking pad more. I mean, these are very simplistic examples. And sometimes the life changes come to shake us out of our own ennui, especially if we're following our intuitive course, but we're not really dedicated to it. Sometimes life changes, especially the upheavals, come to make sure that you're really committed to the path. Because if you aren't, there'll be many excuses to stray, to not accomplish your goals, to not go after what you want. So life changes, and sometimes it's a necessary shakeup. Sometimes these things happen because it is speeding us towards our goal, and we just can't see it. So when these things happen, always consult your intuition and ask, is this happening for my higher good? Does this even involve me? Because sometimes we are just bystanders to people living their own lives, even if they're close to you, especially if they're close to you, right? We'd like to think that people make decisions in their lives considering those around them, and quite often they don't. And you might be able to say, well, if I'm telling you to just, you know, make decisions based on your intuition and what works in your own highest good, are you completely ignoring the well being of people around you? No, but that isn't your primary consideration. However, you have to realize that sometimes we're just bystanders to people living their own lives. Sometimes this shakeup is needed, especially if it forces us to move. If we knew we needed to move, or our subconscious knew we needed to move, sometimes external circumstances will shake out and, catapult us forward, even though we don't realize it. And it doesn't seem like a blessing at the time, it just seems completely miserable. But life changes are a challenge. Sometimes they're a catapult, but it's here to confirm your dedication to pursuing your path. And the next scenario I have is when circumstances realign. So let's say you are guided to leave a job because there's a toxic coworker or toxic manager, and one day you come in and that person is gone, or the manager gives their 2 week notice and it's announced, or they give their notice and they're walked out, because I've heard that happens in places. That has not happened to me, but I do know people to whom that has personally happened. So you think, well, I was looking for another job because XYZ, and I felt like it was time to move on. But unforeseen circumstances have occurred, things have realigned. Maybe I don't need to look for a job. And again, that's time to go through the key questions. Is this still what I want? Is this my path to leave? Or is it just well, if it's toxic, leave? Is it right for you? If it's right for you to leave that job, even if things clear up, you may still not want to be there. Um, and so keep going. Or maybe when you ask yourself again, maybe the answer is, I don't want this position, but I like the place I work. Maybe I can apply for another position where I work. Um, Also, divine timing. Maybe the position you want is not yet available, or maybe it is available and time is of the essence. You need to do it now. Um, I wouldn't say this is a situation where you need to speed things along, but you can just ask, okay, there has been a change in circumstances. Is moving on still what I want? And if the answer is yes, the answer is yes. Or maybe you were thinking of moving, right? Because your roommates are horrid, or your neighbor's terrible, or in my case, they tore down a small house and built a huge house in its place, and it was a nuisance. And I don't think anyone immediately around it moved, but quite often when you go by a place where you see a house is being torn down and rebuilt, you'll see first the neighbors decide to sell up. And the question is this a circumstance? It's a temporary circumstance, but is it your time to leave? For some people, the catalyst is yes, it is time to go. For others, it's I can't stand this noise. And there it's, if you are otherwise happy, how can you deal with this until it is time for you to eventually make a move? So there's several scenarios why when staying the intuitive course can be difficult. And one thing to take out of this that I've learned is that sometimes it takes longer, or you face opposition, or your life circumstances change, or outside circumstances change. But sometimes it's all in the service of you becoming who you need to be to have what you want, to feel what you're aligned with. For me, case in point, I felt like I wanted to get into like good shape, not just lose a few pounds, but really get into good shape for some time. But I dealt with binge eating disorder, and it's really difficult to get fit when you are essentially sabotaging yourself, when emotional circumstances hit and you just want to go and stuff down those feelings with food. I needed to be someone who was no longer a binge eater to become fit. So, another thing to look at is, who do you need to be to have what you want? And I know it's pretty common to hear, um, well, who is the person who has what you want? How can you be them? And sometimes you can't be them right now as much as you might want to. You might think, yes, one day I will be that person. You are not there now. You need to go through the process of change, of evolution, of development, of shedding, of letting things go. You need to develop yourself further before you can be or do or have that thing. So, if you are on the right track and it is hard, in closing, I would just say to If you really feel that you're guided to do the right thing and you've checked in with yourself and it's still what you really want, ask yourself if this is your path, or are you just trying to do it the way someone else did? It's not working out. If it is right for you, is this the right time? If no, you may need to table it for a little bit and then ask, when should I come back to it? Or ask, please give me a sign when it is time to do this thing. Um, if it's taking too long, ask if there is anything you can do to speed things along, and be prepared that sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you just have to keep plugging on and doing and just doing it. So, staying the intuitive course isn't easy, or sometimes it is easy, but it often isn't. But you are doing the right thing, you are doing the aligned thing, and I encourage you to continue. So, if you are on your intuitive right course in some area of your life and you are having a hard time, I encourage you to leave a comment below and tell me where you are struggling, or send me a message if you are on Instagram at the underscore intuition underscore lab. And again, thank you for watching or listening. If you like what you've heard, please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or please rate the podcast and share if you are listening to it on one of the streaming platforms it's posted on. So, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next week.